Alright guys, time for another episode in the Video Archive VHS Collection series. And continuing from the last part, we are showing more big boxes, and also carrying on from the last part, we are covering the Walt Disney Masterpiece Collection videos I have. Now some of them I question why I still have, because either they're in very questionable condition. A few of these were ones I had when I was young. And then some of them are pretty much immaculate condition. So without further ado, let's get started. First off, we have Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, which I believe about a day or two ago, actually a couple days ago, this movie just turned 85 years old. So, yeah, as you can see, unlike a lot of other Disney videos at the time, which you typically see out thrifting, usually they're in terrible condition. This is actually in pretty good shape. Now try to get it to focus. It focused briefly, and then now, just whenever I actually want to see if I can get it to focus on something else. Okay, so okay, there we go. June 20th, 1994. About time. All right. So on the same day that Snow White video came out, they actually reissued a few other Disney films as part of the series with new artwork and maybe cheaper prices, depending on how much Disney wanted for these films at the time. Mary Poppins. This is in pretty rubbish condition. The tape is fine though, just the case is not. But fortunately, I can simply just replace it. But I'll just be the first to admit, I'm sometimes kind of lazy with that. There we go. January 19th, 1996. Just a couple of leaflets. You get a registration card, and you get some ads for some other videos available in the Masterpiece Collection series at the time. So you have some of your mainstays here. Without, then you have some of the LTOs, if you will, and some video guides, including a few movies that actually never came out in the series, which is pretty laughable. And there's the back. And what's interesting is for the Aristocats and Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, they're showing some prototype covers. This was actually the international artwork. Ultimately, when it came out stateside, they ended up changing the cover. And this looks like one of the international covers, although not quite. Alright. That's it for this one. Okay, here's a mainstay of many Disney video collection series, I guess you could say. We have Dumbo. Of course, this was in the Walt Disney Classics series before, although I don't actually have one of the variants. I just have this one, but regardless, you see it. This has been reissued many times on video over the years. For one, it's a popular movie, but also it was a movie that typically was never put on moratorium. It was never an LTO release. August 6th, 1994. Here's another mainstay of any sort of Disney video line, I guess you could call it. I think that sounds a little better than what I said before. Alice in Wonderland. Of course, a movie that was actually a huge flop when it came out in the 50s, but the movie became popular in the early 70s as it gained popularity among, I guess you could say, like, stoners or, I guess, hippies back then. It was a very similar phenomenon that Fantasia faced in the 70s. May 26, 1995. Yeah, it might sound kind of weird that there were some Disney movies popular among stoners, but hey, it happened. Alright, now we have a hidden gem from Disney's catalog. The Three Caballeros, which was a World War II era film. It was actually made, it essentially was made to be a propaganda film. It was meant to try to get Central and South America on the side of the Allies during World War II. September 20th, 1994. I guess you can call this next movie kind of a hidden gem as well, albeit this wasn't a wartime movie. The Sword and the Stone, unless you want to count maybe the Cold War, which was starting about in the early 60s, but it's not necessarily the kind of war that some people would think about. It was more political. May 6th, 1997. This was one of my childhood videos, so the case is not in particularly good condition, but at least the tape still works. And speaking of another tape that's cosmetically unsightly, I have a copy of Robin Hood, which once again is actually one of my childhood videos. This was a favorite of mine growing up. This is not a particularly great movie, but it's pretty fun, I would say. February 22nd, 1996. And for Disney animated films, this was actually made on a fairly small budget for the time. They actually reused animation from a few other films, especially The Jungle Book. But after Walt passed away in the late 60s, I think they were still trying to kind of find themselves at the time. Alright, this at one point was, I believe, the second highest grossing film ever released, but of course it's been surpassed many times over by other movies, but here we have The Lion King. This is actually in fairly good condition. It's not perfect, but it's not awful by any means. I actually had a couple of copies of this growing up, but we kept wearing them out. We have some leaflets inside. I think we even had a recorded copy of this at some point. But it wasn't recorded off the TV. It was made by some neighbor we had a long time ago. They copied an official tape of it over to another VCR, and so they did it. December 17th, 1994. Now we have another example of a Disney video that's actually in pretty good condition. Cinderella. This movie was quite special as it was Disney's first animated film since the start of World War II that had a single narrative. Before then, during the war and then the first few years after the war, a lot of their movies were more like anthology films with multiple segments. July 6, 1995. Those anthology films were largely made because of the war. They actually had to cancel a lot of projects or condense them down to shorts. And so ultimately, to save money, they combined a few segments together into a single film. So it took them a while before they went back to making single narrative movies. Okay, so you might ask, why do I have two copies of Pocahontas? Well, I'll explain. One is a later printing, although these tapes are actually printed fairly close from what I remember. But if you find a print early enough, you'll be able to catch the Walt Disney Classics logo before the start of the film, rather than the Masterpiece Collection intro. It's actually this copy here. December 13th, 1995. But once again, you have to find like a really early copy. This is a pretty early one. It actually took me a few tries and purchasing multiple copies at flea markets and thrift stores before I was finally able to grab one that actually had the Classics intro on it. This is your pretty vanilla copy, but it's actually in pretty good condition, as you can see. Usually it's pretty hard to find Disney videos, especially the animated ones, in really good shape because, well, they typically belong to children, and children aren't the most, they don't always take good care of things that they own. December 18th, 1975. Literally printed days later and actually has just the Masterpiece Collection intro on it. But, hey, at least it's in really nice condition, which is saying something. Here's another tape that I actually still have from my childhood, and, well, it kind of shows. The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. The tape plays fine, but the box isn't in particularly good shape. You get a nice sticker label, though, although I had to glue this on at least once or twice before, because the original adhesive was not very good. February 2nd, 1996. Another childhood video of mine, the Aristocats. What's kind of interesting, I do actually have a copy of the Jungle Book, which I'll show later, but this, Jungle Book, and Robin Hood, all three movies, the actor Phil Harris voices a character. He voices Blue in the Jungle Book, February 26, 1996. Voices this guy in the movie. I don't remember the character's name. It's been so long since I've watched it. Does it have the character's name? Yeah, Thomas O'Malley. That's his name. I was wondering, what the hell is that cat's name? It's been forever since I've watched this movie, but he voiced this character, and then he voices Little John in Robin Hood as well. So, okay, like Pocahontas, I actually have 2 copies of this one as well, although it's kind of by accident. I have Bambi. One, I have a copy that's open, and a copy that's still brand new factory sealed. I believe this copy I actually picked up brand new factory sealed, but I got it years ago. I even put the original stickers that were on the cellophane on there. December 17th, 1996. It does come with a lot of inserts. There's so many, I'm probably not going to bother. If enough people want to see the inserts, maybe I'll do a separate video on this at some point. And then here's a brief overview of the sealed copy. The actual stickers are different this time. This sticker's the same, but this one's different. Or at least it's a different design. And this I actually got in a lot with a Bambi 2 demo VHS I picked up. So this was just kind of an extra tape, but whatever. It was free to me. This next film is often regarded as one of Disney's best films from the 90s. The Hunchback of Notre Dame. And the reason why is because it's actually a lot more, it takes a lot more risks than some of their other films. It's a lot darker. It's based on a very adult book, you could argue. So yeah. January 25th, 1997. I have another copy of Mary Poppins, and this is a remastered version. Although they didn't do it for a particular anniversary or anything else. It seemed like this was kind of a filler release. July 25th, 1997. And like that Bambi video, there's a lot of inserts in this one, so I'm probably not going to bother. But if enough of you guys want to see the inserts, there might be an unboxing video somewhere on YouTube with this tape by somebody, or if you guys want to see if you guys want to see my particular copy, I could probably make a video around this. Now I have another film. Here's a film that I think visually looks great. I also like the score. I like the villain, but everything else is just kind of meh, in my opinion. Sleeping Beauty. There's no denying it's an absolutely gorgeous film, but I just think the film is just kind of average. It's not bad, it's just kind of average. July 16th, 1997. As I said earlier, I was going to show a copy of the Jungle Book in this video, and, well, here's what I promised. And unlike that Mary Poppins video release, this actually lines up with an anniversary for the film. I think even by the month, because I think the film came out in October 1967 in theaters. This video release came out in October of 1997. Now I'm not sure if it lined up with the day, but they certainly lined up the month and year, which is pretty impressive for Disney to do. But anyway, August 7th, 1997. All right. Here's another kind of post-wartime Disney release, although this was like early 1950s. I think this movie was supposed to be made sometime in the 40s, but because of the war, it got put off for many years until they finally released it in the 50s. Peter Pan. And like Jungle Book, this does actually line up with an anniversary. Although I don't think it lined up by the month, because I think the film came out in February of 53 originally. This video release came out in March of 98, from what I remember. So, January 15th, 1998. They were close, though. Okay, next we have probably the worst animated film Disney put out in the 90s. Not because it was bad, it was just kind of average. We have Hercules. Apparently there's supposed to be a live-action version that's being made of this, which, and from everything I've heard, I think it's going to be terrible. But I guess that's not that surprising, given most of the Disney remakes, at best, have been very mediocre, while others have just been plain bad. December 7th, 1997. And don't worry, this isn't mold, it's just some residue. I guess there's a sticker there at some point. Here's another childhood video, so I apologize for the terrible condition that it's in. The Little Mermaid. And unlike some of these fully restored special editions you've seen previously, like Mary Poppins, this doesn't line up with an anniversary. I think the only reason why they put it out was because the film had a re-release in the fall of 1997, and so around spring of 98, they were like, screw it, we'll put out another video release to cash in, make some more money. January 29th, 1998. Speaking of wartime or like post-wartime anthology films, here's one of them. Melody Time. This was actually one of those movies that took a long time to come out on video in the United States. I think it had a release in a few territories like Japan in the 80s, but this took a while to come out in the States. April 30th, 1998. And this is also one of the only Masterpiece Collection titles post-launch of the line to actually have the full logo on the front cover. And since there isn't a whole lot of ads, I'll go through these real quick. Yeah, back then you had mail-in rebates for things. Here's the registration card. Rather than coupons. Although I guess mail-in rebates still exist to some degree today. But they're not as common as they were back in the 90s. Here's an obscure Disney film that actually went without a video release for many years. And I guess I got this tape for free from somewhere. The Black Cauldron. This belonged to somebody named Sammy Freer. Sammy, if you're out there somewhere, if you want this tape back, I'll send it to you. But yeah, I must have gotten this tape for free at some point, because I think if I saw this at a store, I'm not sure if I would have grabbed it. I probably would have just waited to find another copy. June 15th, 1998. Okay, next up we have a movie that, when it was released in the Masterpiece Collection, actually got recalled. And this is the fixed version. It's not the recalled copy, sadly. The Rescuers. You might be asking, for those who don't know, why was it recalled? Well, it was actually, there was a bit in the film whenever Bernard and Bianca they're on their first flight. In one of the passing buildings, kind of soon after takeoff. In one of the windowsills, for about 2 or 3 frames in the movie, you'll actually see a picture of a naked woman. You can actually find it on the original 1992 North American release. I actually have a CAV Laserdisc, which is pretty cool because you'll actually be able to see it uncut. But apparently somebody was able to catch on this video, and I guess enough people did, enough people complained, probably angry parents. Disney recalled it, and then they issued a fixed version about a month or 2 later. This is the fixed version. February 26, 1999. If I find the recalled copy, like it was printed in December of 98, because the only recalled copy is from shelves. People who actually bought it, unless they returned it, have the recalled version. So just a couple little leaflets that were inside. Overall, this copy's in fairly decent condition. Fortunately, there's a little bit of damage down here, but overall, it's not too bad. This actually looks like it belonged to a private collector or an adult, not a child. Alright, here's another childhood video, so I apologize about the poor condition, but here's Mulan. Probably one of my favorite Disney films growing up. Probably because it's a war movie, and a fairly good one at that. December 14th, 1998. And if you haven't seen it, don't watch the remake. The remake is pretty terrible. Okay, next up we have 101 Dalmatians. Come on, bastard, focus. Come on, focus. There we go. January 25th, 1999. And now we're on to the last tape for this video. We have another anthology film. The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad. Which is, out of the anthology films, this is probably the best. Because the 2 individual segments are actually pretty solid. Especially the Sleepy Hollow one. April 7th, 1999. Alright, that'll do it for this episode. The next one will focus on my, I guess you could say probably the, like the early Disney video releases, ones from the early 80s. Which I actually have a decent number of, not a lot, but I have a decent number. And then the episode after that will focus on the rest of the Disney big boxes. And then the episode after that will focus on, I guess, the rest of the big boxes. And so, if you like what you see, stick around, and I'll see you guys soon.